Okay, so the next topic here is very interesting because if you don't know who Gary Vaynerchuk is, he's a media marketing genius, built multiple companies. He's an entrepreneur, very interesting to follow and listen to his tactics. Well, he does a conference every single year, and I think he's only done it for the last 2 or 3 years, called Agent 2020 or Agent 2021, where he teaches real estate agents and insurance agents, basically anyone who's an agent, how to market yourself and your business in order to do more sales. Well, this conference just happened recently. He gets back into town, goes on to an interview, and every interview and podcast that he does, his team also records it and they put it onto their channel, his Facebook and YouTube channel. And so basically, fresh from a real estate conference that he put together, he comes back and starts talking about how it's not a smart idea to buy a home. Now, let's watch the video real quick and you'll see what I'm talking about.
I do not think the American dream should be buying a home anymore. I think it's full of shit.
Tell me more of that shit.
It's fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
It's a bad use of upfront capital, and it ties you up.
Correct.
And it's just not smart. Like, I'm pissed that I own a home.
Yeah.
I would literally rent in perpetuity now. And I will. Like, I've decided, like, I will never buy another new home.
I'm going to start off by saying I totally agree with Gary Vaynerchuk. But here's the thing. That's a very short clip, and that's what everyone's going crazy about. You have to look at the entire podcast, the entire interview to get the context. A lot of people follow Gary Vaynerchuk because of his skills as an entrepreneur and a marketer. That's what a lot of people follow him for. So when someone is a young person in their 20s and 30s and they have capital of 50 or 100 grand and they're told you should go out and buy a home, buy some real estate, and they want to start a business. So if you have 100,000 in capital and you want to go start a sock business versus buy a home, basically what he's telling you is don't buy the home. It's a stupid idea. Go put that money into the business that you want to do. If you want to buy a home, fine, buy a home, but then don't complain about not starting the business. So that's really the context of where that was coming from. And it's very interesting. Here in the Bay Area, I tell so many people, if you have the capital and the ability to buy a home, don't buy a home, but instead buy an investment property. Now, this is going a little bit to what you preach all the time, is buy an investment property. You live in the property. In fact, we just mentioned it a few minutes ago. You buy a fourplex, live in one of the units as if you're a tenant. After a few years, you buy another property and move out of it, and now you own a 4-unit building, and you just keep doing that on repeat. We have several clients, several friends that have done that, and after a 10 to 15-year period, you have a sizable real estate portfolio. The problem is you have to put in the time and get the idea of buying a home. So basically where this entire interview came down to is the real estate agent's upset that he said, don't buy a home. It's a waste of money. And, you know, I have a client right now and a good friend of mine that he can afford to buy a $2 million property, yet he's choosing to rent in the city that he's buying or that he wants to buy in. And he did an analysis, and him and I literally just talked about this morning. He broke down the full analysis, and his cost to own the same home that he lives in, but he's renting right now, is $7,000 more after all the tax credits, mortgage interest deductions, after everything is done. $7,000 out of pocket every single month is what it will cost him to own. Not just that, $315,000 down payment. That's a lot of capital to give up every single month, and upfront capital in order to buy a home. He would rather have that cash in hand so he can make other investments, whether that be starting the business or buying other investment property. So that's where the whole argument of should you rent or should you buy? Well, for your personal residence, I'm a big fan of renting unless you're buying your dream home.
So again, going off of what Marc was saying, I kind of have to be on the side of disagreeing with what Gary said, primarily. And again, but I also agree with some of what he said. It depends on what perspective you're coming from. Now, again, let's just address it from exactly what Gary said, from the perspective of an entrepreneur who wants to start a business, say a sock business, and has money set aside. So I was exactly, and that's same position 28 years ago, right? So instead of me buying my first house, I bought a 4-unit building. And in fact, this was the exact methodology that I used for every one of my clients who came and said, hey, I've got 50,000. Hey, I've got 100 grand and I want to buy a house. What should I do? So what I always put into their mind, and eventually most of them would actually do this, is, hey, you don't own a house right now. You could buy a 4-unit building with 3.5% down using FHA. With that 3.5% down, it's like, you're only using less than a quarter of the $100,000 or $50,000 you've set aside to do something. With that, you can live in one unit, rent out the other 3, and then turn around and have that income while still having the seed capital to do other things, whether it's buy another investment property or start a business. Again, this was my exact perspective, right? So I was able to do this, and within a few months, I'm going to buy a house and have the mortgage pay for my house. I always like to do the math with every one of my clients on the rent versus own methodology. Again, you could do that exact thing by looking at an individual's income, looking at the write-offs they will get from the house, from taxes, from insurance, and then also from the principal reduction, and make that quick determination of, here's my rent and here's my true cost to buy a property. Again, addressing it from the perspective of an entrepreneur, when you're looking for seed capital, especially for a new business, there's not a better place to do that than from your single family or 4-unit building. Whenever you buy a primary residence, whether it's a house, duplex, triplex, or fourplex, and you live in there for at least 2 years, each individual gets a $250,000 capital gains tax exemption. So when you have 2 people owning this home and they have that exemption, and you've looked at that property and you've timed it just right where you're able to sell it within 2 years or 3 years, you're able to generate a humongous amount of seed capital that's capital gains tax exempt from federal and state, while still having the benefits of the home, and then use that for whatever endeavor you're looking to do, whether it's start a stock company or buy another investment property. So I don't just invest in real estate. I've actually myself been an entrepreneur and added seed capital to other various completely non-related to real estate businesses. So when I hear that, hey, I should take all my 100 grand and allocate it all on just a new business that I'm going for, it goes back to the whole idea of you should always have a backup plan. So when I look at Gary's message of like, take that entire 100 grand and allocate it towards that new business, especially if you're an entrepreneur, I have to disagree. I have to look at all the angles, set aside a portion of that for a house, look at the ability of what I could use with that other money to start and progress my business, while simultaneously and concurrently tracking the value of my fourplex or duplex or triplex or house as to when I could resell it, try to take advantage of that exemption and capital gain, which you could then again use for seed capital to continue to grow your business. Which is exactly what I did.
We should create a program for entrepreneurs that want to start a business, but at the same time have a backup plan.
Yes.
That'd be a good, that'd be good for us to talk about.
That's more
later.
of my perspective, not this all in, balls out kind of thing. And yeah, I'm really, really meticulous with how I budget my money, and this is the same exact thing that I try to tell and preach to all my clients.